wanted to take a minute and just explain my preaching process. I've been preaching weekly for 25 or so years now, and very comfortable with my own process. Not everybody has that same level of comfort, but you have to come up with your own. So here's mine. First, I start with a text. And the reason I start there is obviously not only because I'm going to be preaching that text, but because I approach it as the text actually draws out the questions that need to be asked of the congregation, of the people who will hear. Some people start and they choose to start differently, and that's fine. It's just a different approach. For my own personal approach, I start with a text. Other people start with the needs of the congregation, and then they go find a text. I start with the text and let that text speak to the congregation. I ask questions about what the text says about God. I ask questions about what the text says about us. In your reading, Zach Eswin's book, you'll eventually get to his kind of 4 F's: the fallen condition, faltering condition, frail condition, fragile condition. So those are the ways that he sees that we can get to the good news of Jesus. Those are the avenues which they can go down. So start there. You start asking questions about the text, what all it says about God, and what it says about humanity. Certainly in the middle of all that textual work, you want to do your linguistic work, all the stuff in Hebrew or in Greek, whichever testament you're studying in. You want to make sure, I tend to make sure, use that in particular to make sure that I'm not missing anything, or if there's not anything that the author may be trying to say that isn't quite as clear through the English translations. Again, this is my own personal preference. I honestly don't do a lot of that publicly. Hey, here's a Greek word and it means this. That's not really who I am as a preacher. Instead, what I tend to do is just say, hey, this is when he uses it this way, this is what it means. And we just kind of move on pretty quickly from there. So I'm also, as I'm reading the text, I'm looking for key words, key themes, repeated concepts or words. And it's at that point, once I kind of have all of that work together, that I go to the commentaries. Some people go there first. I understand why they do that. I like to go there last. And then I just let the stuff that I discover there shape the outline that is going to be set out and put before the congregation. I let it shape the outline that's going to become the sermon itself. So with all of that in mind, that's kind of the textual side of my own approach. Very practically, I do all of that on paper with a pen in hand. I'm a paper and pen guy, been at it a while. Again, it's kind of my thing. Other people do it on a computer, or they use really, really powerful computer programs like Logos to help them shape the sermon. I'm a paper and pen guy. I like honest to goodness real books. Today is my sermon prep day, and here is one of the books that is in my library, and I was using for that. So I'm a paper and pen guy. That's what I'm saying, and I like real books. So this is all for me how that goes. The next part is moving from the hermeneutical side, the interpretation side, to the homiletic side. I'm getting ready to preach. I will say that in my own life, as well as in many young preachers' lives, they have a tendency to try to say too much. One of the gifts of being a pastor and preaching week in, week out is that next Sunday is coming, and you don't have to say everything that you feel like you need to say today because you have next Sunday as well. But there is a tendency to say too much and you pare down. I am looking for 2 to 3 kind of main points that I'm trying to get across, or that the text is trying to get across to us, plus whatever subpoints may fall underneath there. The time limit that our church experience, our worship experience has me at about 33 to 35 minutes. And if I go 3 to 4 points, then I'm typically looking at 40 to 45 minutes. So I try to stay in that 2 to 3 point range. I do those big things first. I do the main points first. Then I go back and write the introduction. And then I go back and put together the conclusion and think about how the fallen condition focus, fragile focus, frailty focus, and all of that stuff that you'll be reading about in Eswin's book, how that calls the congregation to something and the individual hearer to something. So that's how I shape the conclusion. At the very, very end is when I stick in the illustration material. It may be that I've already come up with some of it, and so I will include that in the earlier work, but sometimes it takes a while for me to sit with it and sit with the outline and then think about the illustrations. And it's always at that last kind of step. Throughout this process, I'm always thinking about the people that I'm going to be preaching to. I've been at my particular place of service for 14 plus years at the time of this video. And so I know my people fairly well. I know the kinds of people that they are. I know the struggles that they tend to have. And so I'm always thinking about my people and how God wants to speak to them. So I work through the text, do the commentary stuff, let the outline kind of be birthed out of that work. And then I look for the main points, then do the introduction and conclusion, all the while thinking about my people. That's my process. You get to come up with your own and make it your own, and it'll be refined somewhere along the way. That's a good thing.